Good afternoon. It is 12, right on the dot. I was ready early today. So, really excited about that. I'm going to try to do that more often, right at 12. We have a lot to cover today, a lot of information to cover, but I think it's very important information for Canadian. And it is a subject that has its controversy and that a lot of people are not willing to talk about, and that's the state of active terrorists in Canada allowing to come in and also work within Canada. And I'm excited and glad to see that there's some pushback on this. I'm going to be talking about the conference, the Caliphate conference that was supposed to occur, I believe, on the 18th. And it was first supposed to be in Mississauga and then Hamilton. And now they've been canceled, both those locations. So now the conference is canceled for now. I'm going to be talking about who was trying to put this conference and why was it so controversial, why we should be concerned, as well as covering what a lot of people are saying, including an organization that represents Islam imams around the world and what their concerns were. I'm going to also talk about another controversial subject, Andrew Tate. I'm not going to do a big deep dive on Andrew today. That's going to be saved. I think I need a full episode to do just that. However, I'm going to just skim on that subject right now because I am so disappointed that so many conservatives are giving him the time of day and giving him, I guess, time on their platforms. And they're not bringing him on to ask him hard questions or to challenge him. They're bringing him on and almost putting him on a pedestal, which I think is absolutely insane. But so I'll talk about that a little bit. And then I'm going to talk about the Alberta US relationship and just some of the thoughts that I have. I've covered this a bit already, but I'm going to cover it a little bit more because something came up when I was playing Daniel Smith's video in interview the other day. And I didn't know about this, about the pipelines that feed the East Coast and where it goes through. So I'm going to show that a little bit. Again, I'll probably do a bigger deep dive into all of that on another episode, but those are the three main subjects that I'm going to cover today. Again, this is a live recorded show. So throughout the show, I hope I get to interact with you guys. I do see all the comments that are posted, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. So if you're watching, let me know where you're watching from, whether it's the platform or physically as well. When you guys ask questions, it gives me an opportunity to interact. I want this to be like a communication. So I actually really enjoy getting comments. And it also helps spread the message. The algorithm favors a lot of comments. So I like seeing it because of that too. The further this message spreads, the more chances we have at fixing Canada and getting it back to the kind of country we're not ashamed of and the kind of country we can be proud of and the kind of country that we thrive in. So again, like, share, you can retweet this or share it wherever on whichever platform you have. I have it set up so it's public, even on Facebook. So feel free to share it. But I'll get started a little bit on the subject about this conference that was happening in Canada. So I had to do a bit of research as to who these people are. And I don't know if I'm going to do the pronunciation correct. I often will butcher stuff like that. English is my second language. So some of you may not know that. My first language is French. So that's why I have a little bit of an accent when I speak in English. Some days worse. If I just spoken to my family and was speaking in French when I come back to English, I have more of an accent. Or if I'm super tired, and I would say if I'm drinking, but I don't drink anymore. So that used to be one of the times that, not that I don't drink, I will have like one glass, but in my younger days, I used to drink a lot more. My French accent would come out. So anyways, I'll get started into this topic. I'm trying to think which one I want to start with the most. So this is, I don't know who all these people are. I'll click on their profile to see. So Michael Asak, I follow him. He's the director of Western Canada at Canadian FSWC. I don't know what that means. It must be a nonprofit organization. Anyways, he just came up on my feed, so that's why I'm highlighting him. So he said, Canadians spoke up and the right decision happened. Now is the time for our leaders to step up and declare them a terrorist organization and make sure it doesn't happen again. I just realized I have to move this a little bit. You guys aren't seeing the full screen. There you go. And I have to say, after what I've found on these people, I have to agree. Now, Michael Levitt is the president CEO of Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center, former York Center MP and chair of foreign affairs. So Michael Levitt said, breaking his Tahrir conference has been canceled, an important victory in the fight against extremism and hate in our country, but it's not enough, not nearly enough. This organization must be listed as a terror group under Canadian law. I'm just going to see what country, because they are in many countries. I'm just going to see if ChatGPT knows which country that is. I probably should have looked that up. What country? I'm going to type it out because if I say it, it's probably not going to do the right. Tahir. No. Designated as a terrorist organization. So the United Kingdom is one of them. Russia, Germany, China, Egypt, Turkey, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. I don't know Kyrgyzstan. I didn't even know these were countries. Tajikistan, Jordan, Tunisia, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, Malaysia. There's more. Syria, Iraq, Ukraine. Basically, oh, wow. The list goes on. Oh, I got to show you guys this. Why not in Canada? And I think this says a much greater problem that we're not addressing. The mainstream media is not addressing this, and I'm going to address it. Why is it other countries who have designated them as a terrorist organization? I'm going to show you guys my screen. I'm going to move my mic just so you get to see. Let's wait till it focuses. These are all the countries. Keeps going. Who have designated them a terrorist organization. Most of those countries are in the Middle East. Spain, Netherlands, Belgium, Portugal, Italy, Vatican City. Oh, I didn't know that was considered a country. You learn things every day. But why hasn't Canada? And I think that identifies a greater problem that we're not facing, that we're too afraid to face. It's almost like suicidal empathy. That's what I'm going to call it, because you're seeing that in many of the Western democratic society, just be too afraid to address this subject. Well, I'm not too afraid to address it. So I did a bit of digging to see who exactly are these and what is it that they're trying to do. So this is the organization. They basically announced that the extreme conference has been canceled. So I dug a little bit deeper to see who are these people, what are they about, what are people saying about them, what are they saying about themselves. Now, this group has acted or done things in other countries as well. One of them was recently in Sydney, Australia, last October. And I'm going to play a video clip, but first I'm going to do that in a little bit, of their own words at the conference in Australia. But before, I'm going to show an advertisement for this conference, just to give you a bit of a glimpse or an idea. So this is Ottoman Daddy. I don't know who he is. I wouldn't say follow him, considering he's promoting this event. It says, get ready for the Khalifa Conference 2024. His Tahrir, Canada, invites you to this year's conference. The Caliphate, eliminating the obstacles that are delaying Caliphate, eliminating the obstacles that are delaying its return. Let's just ask Chat GPT what the Caliphate or Caliphate means. What does Caliphate means? Caliphate. Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's just they're using a different term. So the term Caliphate refers to the Caliphate, which is an Islamic system of governance. It derives from the Arabic root of Khalifa, meaning to succeed or to come after. In Islamic tradition, the Caliphate represents the political and religious leadership of the Muslim community Ummah, succeeding the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in his role as both a spiritual and political leader. Key concept of the Caliphate. Leader. The Caliph is the head of the state responsible for implementing Islamic law, Sharia law, and ensuring justice and welfare for all citizens. Again, what I'm sharing here is pure facts. Like this is from their set of beliefs. Governance by Sharia. The Caliphate is characterized by governance according to Islamic principles and law derived from the Quran and Sunnah. Unity of Muslim Ummah. The Caliphate aims to unite Muslim worldwide under a single leadership transcending national and ethnic division. So it's not just in their country or in the Middle East. They want this across the entire world. Historic role. After the death of Prophet Muhammad in 632 CE, the Caliphate was established to continue his leadership. The first four caliphs are known as the rightly guided caliphs. Abolishment. The Ottoman Empire was the last widely recognized caliphate, which was officially abolished in 1924 by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk in Turkey. The concept of the caliphate remains significant in Islamic thought, with varying interpretation and discussion about its relevance and implementation in the modern world. For some, it symbolizes unity and governance according to Islamic values, while others view it as a historical institution. So this is directly from ChatGPT explaining it. And I don't think it's being biased. I think it's just giving the exact representation, because even it uses, when it mentions Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the comma. I was just reading exactly what it said. And yes, someone says what you're reading was generated by AI, so be careful. But this also confirms everything I've been told by Muslim friends. I've met with them, and they have said, yeah, if they would like that to happen all throughout the world. They would like to see that happen. However, recently I had another discussion with one of them who have said, well, we only want that if that's what the people want. That's what the majority wants. So that's how he clarified it. Either way, this is what this group believes in. And okay, so I'm just going to read a comment here. Brett Tracy says, it's not capable of being biased, but the data that it's retrieving from could be biased. Yes, AI is not always 100% truth. We've seen that in the past. What it does, it takes all the information that is available on the net whenever it would have been loaded into it, and then it goes based on that. So if the information loaded into it could be wrong, it could be wrong. But it's a pretty generalization explanation of it, of the definition. Maybe some imam or Muslim would like to counter that, but it also confirms my conversations that I've had with some sectors of the Muslim community who yes, they believe that this would be the best case scenario. So now they understand that that's not the reality that we're living in, but it doesn't mean that's not what they wish for. This particular one does. So anyways, I'm going to read what it says. Eliminating the obstacles that are delaying its return. So this specific conference is basically saying we want to bring this in, and we're going to talk about and strategize what's stopping it from coming in. And this, they're talking about this in Canada, not in the Middle East. They're talking about this coming in to Canada. And so you can see here, I don't know if you guys can read this, but the nationalism and the regime, frontline enemies of Islam, the colonialist powers, busting myths and erasing our fears. Only the Caliphate will liberate Palestine. Everything else is a distraction. Despairing in the victory of Allah is forbidden. Trusting him is an obligation. So this was the advertisement for it. So yeah, it was supposed to be in Mississauga, and I think it got changed to Hamilton. Now it's completely canceled. Now let's go look into some of the other things that they're saying here. And some of these videos and some of the things that other people are sharing as well that I want to bring to awareness. Look, I haven't read all of this. Some of it, as I'm reading, I might disagree with some points, but I do trust these people and I do follow them already. So I've heard a lot of them talk about this and talk about the concerns that there was around it. So here is one of them. Imam of Peace. He says in just 7 days, extremist organization Hizb Tahrir is set to host its so-called Caliphate Conference in Canada. The pursuit of a global caliphate, once championed by ISIS, must not be allowed to gain a foothold under a new disguise in Canada. Statement by GIC quoted below. So I'm just going to click on this one to see. Okay, and I had that statement as well. So I'll read it out to you guys because it's written quite small. So this is a global imams council. So this is a council of all the imams around the world. But first I'll read what Imam of Peace has said, just in case people are listening to this and not watching. Canada must ban Hizb ut-Tahrir. If I'm butchering the pronunciation again, I'm sorry, that's not on purpose, which poses a grave threat to its national security. 17 countries have taken action against the extremist group, which calls for the destruction of democratic states and the establishment of a global caliphate, the key objectives of ISIS. So this is the Global Council of Council. They've written a statement, but I'll also read what they wrote in the tweet. The GIC has submitted an argument letter to Public Safety Canada calling for the prevention of the upcoming Caliphate Conference 2025 organized by the extremist Islamist group Hizb ut-Tahrir in Hamilton, Ontario. More information in the thing. I'm going to see if I can open it up bigger in another page because I can't quite read this. Give me a second here. I'm going to see if I can put it just so I can read it, because if I make the screen bigger here, I might be able to. Or no, let me see. Okay, yeah, it's much bigger here. Greetings and peace be upon you. Global Imams Council expresses its profound concern regarding the planned Caliphate Conference 2025 by Hizb ut-Tahrir, scheduled to take place in Hamilton, Ontario on January 18th. Hizb ut-Tahrir is known globally for its radical ideology, rejection of democratic principles, and open advocacy for a global Islamic caliphate, a stance that directly contradicts Canadian values of democracy, peace, and coexistence. This event, if allowed to proceed, poses a significant threat to social cohesion. The very notion of a conference promoting the establishment of a caliphate within Canada is deeply alarming and offensive, not only to the broader Canadian public, but also to the overwhelming majority of Muslims in the country who uphold democratic values and actively contribute to Canadian multicultural society. His career stated agenda and extremist rhetoric foster division and isolate Muslims from the rest of society. Muslim youth have proven to be particularly vulnerable to their ideology and tactics. It is for these reasons that over 17 countries, including Germany, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Turkey, and the United Kingdom, have taken decisive legal action against the group. Allowing such an event to proceed in Canada risks undermining years of efforts by Muslims who seek to build bridges of mutual respect and understanding. As an organization representing mainstream Muslim scholars and communities, the Global Imam Council views this conference as a blatant attempt to spread extremism under the guise of free speech. We urge the Public Safety Canada to intervene and prevent this event from taking place. Additionally, we request a thorough review of Hizbut Tahrir activity within Canada with the possibility of a formal ban of the organization. The GIC remains fully committed in supporting your office in safeguarding Canada's values of tolerance, unity, and peace. Thank you for your prompt attention to this issue. You know what? Good on them for bringing this up and taking a stand against this. I saw a video the other day. It was by a lady. I can't remember her name. She talks about, she's from Lebanon. She was a Christian from Lebanon whose family were persecuted. They fled to the U.S. and she talks about Muslim extremism a lot. And she was saying there was a lady who came who was Muslim who said, look, the majority of us don't agree with this. And she says when they done survey on the Muslim community, only about 15 to 20% had extremist views. But she says when you have millions and millions and millions of people who have that Muslim faith, 15 to 20% can be several millions of people. And she said it doesn't take a lot of people to commit terrorist act, to commit atrocious, I guess, terrorist activity that kills many, many lives. She says, as someone from that community, you're more able to speak out against this, to stop it. And she says you should be focusing on doing that, not telling us we shouldn't be afraid that this is not a threat, because it is clearly a threat that Western society faces, especially those with values that go against what these groups believe in. And I don't mean these groups as all Muslim. I mean these groups as the extremist pushing groups like this one. And it was a really good point, as in when we see stuff like this, we should all be calling it out. That 80% of Muslims who don't agree with it should be calling it out. And that's what this group did. So good on them for doing that. And I read directly what was in the statement as well. Now let's look at this group to see exactly what makes them. First of all, I'm going to share a tweet. I'm going to read it out too. So this is Dahlia Kirk, and I believe she used to be, I might be mistaken on this, but she may have been an ambassador at one point to Israel. I'm just going to confirm that. Was Dahlia Kirk a former ambassador to Israel? I didn't spell it out properly in here. Oops. I might be confusing her with someone else. Okay, no, she wasn't. I'm glad I double checked. She is a Canadian journalist, radio talk host, and advocate known for her efforts to combat hate and extremism in Canada. In late 2024, she participated in a media mission to Israel, meeting with elected officials to develop a plan to address the issue upon her return to Canada. Okay, sorry, I was wrong. She's not a former ambassador, but she has been talking about this a lot. So I thought I'd highlight this tweet. She says, important Caliphate conference information that's not yet been addressed. Yes, the Caliphate conference is canceled as far as we know. After all, his Tahrir does operate secretly. It is a designated terror organization in several countries, thus cannot be trusted. Okay, we'll cancel a conference, promise. Also, the group is still not banned in Canada, and even the banned IRGC has not yet been deported. Its operatives run amok in Canada, continuously publicly posting their criminal activities on social media. Now there's a man, Mazin Abdul Adhim, one of the organizers behind that Caliphate conference, calling on people to overthrow the government. Do you think anything will happen to him or his incitement? Because I can assure you authorities are well aware of him. So I'm going to play this video for you guys. Again, I haven't read the whole thing, or I haven't watched the entire thing.
Armies of the Muslim lands.
But this is, I've got to switch screens here. The sound is funny. Oh no, not again. Has it been doing that a long time? That was 12:27 minutes and I didn't see it. Sorry. Is it still doing it now? I'm going to see if I can move some of the cable. I'm going to try shutting off too. I thought we had fixed it. I don't want it to make any noise at all. Is now better or no? It's gone. Okay. I'm so sorry. Thanks for letting me know, guys. So were you able to see that letter at all? When I was reading it? What I might do, because I'm going to do short clips of this too, this episode. Like I've started doing that, doing short clips of the episodes that I do. So I wonder if it might be static too. What I might do is when I do the short clips, I'll re-record my voice reading that letter. Was it doing before as well, before I read the letter, or just when I started reading that letter? I can go back and look too. The joys of live streaming a show. Sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't. And it's not like I have like a tech for about 5 minutes, but it's gone now. Okay. Sometimes some people have tech, like people like Blaze Media, all of those people, they have tech people to do all of this, but it's a one person show for me. Like I'm the one that does all the editing, all the posting, all the filming, all the getting ready for the show, and all the organizing guests on the show, which I just started doing, and that takes a lot of time. I have April Atchinson that reached out to me, so she's going to be coming on my show. Just when I was reading the letter, I wonder if it was too much for my computer to process because I had that letter throughout 4 screens. I don't know. Okay, we'll get going with this. But yeah, April, sorry. I've got too many things I'm thinking about at once. April's going to be coming, I think, next week. We're just trying to figure out when. So, and she, if you don't know who she is, she's a bodybuilder in Canada who's been speaking out against people born male participating in women's sports. So anyways, we'll get back to this subject. Thanks, guys, for letting me know. If ever you notice something like that happens, let me know. Normally, I would have seen it, but I had that letter in front of the comments. So, but yeah, we'll get going with this video. Again, I haven't watched this video in full. So this is someone a part of that group that was organizing the terrorist conference or organizing the conference. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't support what he's going to say. I'm just playing it so that Canadians can be well aware of what it is that these people stand for. Here, I'm trying to find the best. Here you go. That one.
After Bismillah, this is a call to the armies of the Muslim lands. We know with almost 100% that within the ranks of the armies right now, throughout the Muslim lands, there is unseen frustration and struggle to maintain order within the ranks, unlike anything that we've ever seen before. You within the ranks of the armies in the Muslim lands know how much this is happening. We all know how much you're struggling with the fact that you're sitting there, unable to move forward and liberate the Muslims of Palestine. We know how angry you are at the fact that the governments of the Muslim lands are holding you back and disallowing you from protecting your Muslim brothers. You know as well as we do the ayah in the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَإِنِ اسْتَنْصَرُوكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ فَعَلَيْكُمُ النَّصْرُ. If they call out for you for help, for military assistance, then you must go give them military assistance. This is your chance to become the Ansar of this age. This is your chance to gain the honor and the dignity of being the liberators of the land of Al-Aqsa and to defend the blood of your Muslims. This is the struggle that will change all other struggles, that will define all other struggles. I call upon all the Muslims in the armies in the Muslim lands to break free of the shackles that are holding you back from assisting your Muslim brothers and sisters and coming to the call of your Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the time to break away from the ranks. This is the time to rebel against your leaders. This is the time to overthrow your government. This is the time to bring about change, the change that everyone is dying for. When the Muslims are calling out, free, free Palestine in the streets, they're not talking to the West. The West is not going to free Palestine. Egypt is not going to free Palestine. Jordan is not going to free Palestine. Erdogan is not going to free Palestine. Mohammed bin Salman is not going to free Palestine. None of these traitors, these sellouts who have sat there watching their Muslim brothers and sisters and the children die in the thousands and they're doing absolutely nothing about it. None of them are going to come and free Palestine. But you will. The Muslim Ummah will. The people who are going to free and liberate Palestine will be the sincere Muslims of this Ummah, and they will be given the honor in the dunya and in the akhirah for playing a role in this. You have an opportunity of a lifetime. It is time that we understand that the people of Palestine have no one else other than you, the military
Wait, I'm
of
going
the
to
Muslims.
pause this for a second. I'm going to go back. I want to clarify who he's telling to overthrow their government.
Free Palestine in the streets. They're not talking to the West. The West is not going to free Palestine. Egypt is not going to free Palestine. Jordan is not going to free Palestine.
He's saying all of these countries are not going to, all of these leaders in these countries are not going to free Palestine. Is he actually saying to overthrow all of these leaders?
Erdogan is not going to free Palestine. Mohammed bin Salman is not going to free Palestine. None of these traitors, these sellouts who have sat there watching their Muslim brothers and sisters and the children die in the thousands and they're doing absolutely nothing about it. None of them are going to come and free Palestine. But you will. The Muslim Ummah will. The people who are going to free and liberate Palestine will be the sincere Muslims of this Ummah, and they will be given the honor in the dunya and in the akhirah for playing a role in this. You have an opportunity of a lifetime. It is time that we understand that the people of Palestine have no one else other than you, the military of the Muslims. Allah Azza wa Jal is not going to bring a miracle out of the sky to liberate Palestine. Allah Azza wa Jal is teaching us that we have to do it ourselves, and nobody is going to come and help Palestine. Nobody except for you. And I call on all Muslims who watch this video to make a video just like it. It doesn't matter if you're not articulate. It doesn't matter if you don't know what to say. It doesn't matter if you've never made a video before. Make a video saying the same thing. Let the armies of the Muslim lands know we all stand with the armies of the Ummah. We all stand with the people of Palestine. I call everybody to start a campaign to make videos where we call the armies of the Muslim lands to do something. This is what we must do. Going out into the streets and calling out to who are we even calling out to? We're not calling out to anybody. We're just calling out. So why don't we do something practical? Why don't we do something real? Make videos where we speak to the armies of the Muslim lands, because who are the members of these armies? The members of these armies are our brothers and our uncles and our fathers and our family. These are Muslims who are from us, of us. Once these armies break free of these shackles, then change will happen. Only through this will change happen. We must unite the armies of the Muslim lands under a single Khalifa that will implement Islam and earn the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the victory of Allah Azza wa Jal will come through this. If we seek it through any other way, through nationalistic solutions or UN resolutions or international law, or begging the West for scraps of mercy, or begging the Arab tyrants and enemies of Allah for scraps of mercy, which they will never give us, then we're simply waiting for nothing. Only through the Khilafah will Allah Azza wa Jal save us. Make the video now. And again,
Wow. Wow. He's not even hiding it a little bit. So, where is this guy from? So, he's one of the organizers behind the conference. So, he must be in Canada. Yeah, it's just, I can assure you, authorities are well aware of him. Directly from their mouth. I'm not making insinuations here. This is someone directly calling that out. Huh. Okay, let's see what else we've got for calling out. Melissa here shared one of the tweets. It's a video as well, so I'll put it on the other screen. But Melissa said, wow, I would join up with another country and bomb the hell out of. But it doesn't say which one. I wish I had the full video of this, because I'd like to hear the context behind it, but I don't know how there'd be any context that could be justifying this. But I'll see if I play it. I'll just move. Here, give me 1 second. I'm going to try to find how I can go about and make this bigger in that screen without having to. Here you go. There. Oh, I got to restart it.
Question I want to ask you, if, say, subhanAllah, you mean Khalifatul Rasul, the leader.
Let's start again. The volume.
I want to ask you, if, say, subhanAllah, you are Amir al-Mu'mineen, Khalifatul Rasul, the leader of the Muslims for one day, what would you do on that one day?
I would team up with another neighboring country and I would bomb the hell out. Implement more.
Question I want to ask you, if, say, subhanAllah,
so I think he was asking that questions to a bunch of people. Again, I'm not a huge fan of videos being clipped like this, but I don't know what other context that would be justifiable to begin with. Now let's see what this group did at a conference in Australia. I just have to add that link here quickly. Usually I have it done ahead of time, but I don't know why I forgot. So here's the video.
Drone. What does he do? He doesn't just shut.
I know you guys can't hear it yet. I've just got to switch screens here. So this one is a bit longer, but I think it's worth the watch. So this is the same group. Sorry, my voice got scratchy here. Again, if the mic starts doing issue, please let me know. It's weird because I don't hear it in my ear. So it's something in the system when I think it gets overloaded. But this is 4 minutes, 46 seconds. I watched about half of it. I didn't watch the entire thing. And I thought, wow, this is insane. But this is the same group doing a conference in Australia.
Drone. What does he do? He doesn't just chuck it with no purpose. You watch that video carefully. He picks it up and he takes a second with defiant look, and then he musters whatever he's got left so that he can target it at the thing, and he almost hits it. If you're following what the resistance has been doing over the past 75 years and the progression that they've had, the aqeedah that they hold, there's no question about their aqeedah, their belief. They live it truly. So for each one of us, the question I would pose to each one of us is, What are you so afraid of that you're unable to speak up, to state the truth? I mean, just to think about October 7th, for example, I found it really interesting that the Zionist narrative, even for people who are pro-Palestine, pro-resistance and all of that, everybody was pausing. They didn't know how to react.
My brothers and my sisters in Islam, we have brothers and sisters in the lands of Libat, in the lands of jihad, who are holding the ummah's honor on their shoulders. They are standing and they're fighting with their blood. They are standing and they're fighting with their children for you and I, so we can walk up one day and say the izzah of Islam, the guarantee of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will dominate occurred on their hands. Wallahi, that day is coming. Just like it came before, it will come again. Wallahi, I say it again. I am elated. I am happy. Wallahi, I've never seen it ever in my life. The shift and the tide that has occurred over the last year against the Zionist regime. Wallahi, my brothers and my sisters in Islam, victory is coming. And you and I, inshallah, because we love Allah and we love His Prophet, we are on that path to victory. We are on that path of the civilizational struggle where we're going to see Islam dominate. Where we're going to see Islam bring about justice to every corner in the world.
Okay, pause.
When I fear for my life because there
We are going to see Islam dominate. We are going to see Islam bring that justice to every corner of the world.
for my life because there are tyrants there. There are the Zionists, there are their backers, America, the governments all over the world. This was the warning that was sent to Bani Israel. So will we follow in the footsteps of Bani Israel, or will we be warriors on the path to liberate Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa?
Now they are trying to make us scared of saying the word jihad. Ya Allah, choose us and select us to be amongst the mujahideen that would liberate and make Bayt al-Maqdis, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, choose us as mujahideen, Ya Allah. The soldiers of yours, O Allah. Those soldiers who are not scared from anyone, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those soldiers who do not fear anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahi, make the streets of Palestine flow in your blood. Do not ever think and attempt to come back and take over Palestine. The Zionists, they arise mass killings and the Palestinians.
Land is Allah's. He inherits it to whomever He wants.
The ending is coming very soon. The ending is coming very soon. By our hands, and by the hands of our kids. Wallahi, I say to my kids, if I will not make it there to Bayt al-Maqdis, I need you to make sure that you are among the soldiers and the army that will enter it victorious. Wallahi, I say to my kids that I need you to learn about the 15 gates of Bayt al-Maqdis. So when you go there, you know from which gate you will enter. When you go there with the army of Muslims, the victorious army, you know where to go. Wallahi, I teach them the map of Balad al-Sham. So when they go there, they can make the way to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa easily. This is what I teach my kids.
What message do you have for the kids of Palestine?
They're really free. The Ummah is like one body. If one part of the body has pain, the rest is filled with sleeplessness and fever.
Do you care about them? Do you love them?
Yeah, free Palestine.
The interesting part too is when he's saying we will stand and fight. We will stand and fight with our children. At no point did the Western culture, and he didn't state we will stand and fight for our children. He said we will stand and fight with our children. Wow. So that's the group in Australia. I have a bit more to cover on this. I'm just looking here. So I have a bit to cover. I'm not going to read the whole post, but Israel Now said this was before it was canceled. They had been working to get like the ticket sales canceled, which worked. They ended up not being able to do the ticket sales at what was the name? Zephy to also cancel. Eventbrite had canceled, so they had no way of getting the tickets. Now, there's been a lot of efforts to cancel this from people from all over Canada, and it's not just like Jewish people as well. Obviously, Jewish people are some of the first one to speak up because they know what this means for them. They know this breeds hatred towards Israeli people. It breeds hatred towards Jews. We've seen that in the last few years, since even before October 7, the amount of hatred towards Jews in Canada has quadrupled, if not more, way more. And if you look at the percentage of population that they have compared to the percentage of targeted hatred towards them, they are definitely the most targeted group in Canada when it comes to hatred and acts of oh, what's the right term? I'm forgetting it right now. It's at the tip of my tongue. Let's see what else there is. Oh, and here the National Post wrote an article saying radical Islamic group cancels Ontario conference under the pressure of being named a terrorist group. So the National Post here is alluding to the fact that they're only canceling it because they don't want to be named a terrorist group in Canada. Interesting. Salman Sima, if you don't follow him, he's been going to a lot of the protests as a counter protester. I'm trying to think if he's Iranian. Yeah. Fighting dictatorship and corrupt regime, fled Iran after imprisonment, torture, and hunger strikes, working for a better tomorrow. So he's been raising awareness to a lot of this. This could only happen in Canada. The conference that was organized by actual terrorists to establish Caliphate and Sharia law was thankfully canceled. Hizb ut-Tahrir, the organization behind the conference, is not listed as a terrorist entity. The Islamists who openly appeared in the advertising video for this conference and talked about the destruction of Western civilization have not been arrested, but radical mosques behind this conference have not been shut down. But we are happy that the Islamic Caliphate conference was canceled. In fact, that this event was planned in the first place in Canada is the main problem. Why should terrorist sympathizers feel confident to openly call for Islamic Caliphate and plan such an event? And he makes a really good point. And that should tell us all Canadians we have a huge problem that needs to be addressed. I have not seen this being addressed by the Liberal government. In fact, that they're turning a blind eye to it. Every time they even talk about hatred against Jews, they make sure to point out, oh, but there's Islamophobia, like almost every time. That they have to do both sides without just talking about the very real problem that we have in Canada. And I think too, they don't want to admit their own failures as a government for letting this get worse and worse and worse in the last few years. But I think it's more sinister than that, but that's just me being conspiratorial. Let's see what else I've got here. I think that covers that subject. I'm going to do a bit more of a deeper dive. I do want to do also a debate with the whole Israel Palestine conversation. I have someone who wants to represent Palestine and talk about that side. Now I'm working on someone to represent Israel on the other side. So once I find that, I'd like to have a debate conversation because I think a lot of the narratives that are spreading can be dispelled or proven true or false when a healthy debate occurs. So I would be moderating it. There would be prior questions decided by both participants prior to and agreed upon. And I'd like to see some facts as well, some solid facts presented. So I'm going to be working on that. And but that's not going to be for several weeks because I don't even have someone confirm for the Israel side. So I'm not equipped with the information. I know that for myself. I would need to read, especially with the person who wants to represent the Palestinian side. Um, this is all he does. This is all he researches. That's not my job. That's not my area of expertise. I've seen enough to know which side I stand on. I'm not going to say I'm not biased. I am very biased. I have looked at the information on both sides, and there's one side that I recognize more my values with, the Western culture values, and that makes it pretty clear. Do I like that there's a war? No. But the responsibility of that war, I don't think falls only on Israel. I think, in fact, it's a much greater conversation. So yeah, if you know someone who would be great to represent the Israel side, I would like to have that person. Murray, the guy that did the monks debate, I think he would be phenomenal. So I am going to be reaching out to him. It's a long shot. Likely not going to come on my show, but you never know if you don't ask, right? So until I find someone that I think is equally informed from their side, I don't think it would be a fair debate if I don't do that either. So, but yeah, so I'm planning on bringing that in the near future. So next subject, it's not as controversial as this one, but it is a local subject to Saskatchewan. So here you go. It's a video too, so I'll play the video. I haven't actually listened to the whole thing. I'm going to play it up top here. I'll have to change screens. But first I'll read what Scott Moe tweeted out. To enhance border security between Saskatchewan and the United States, our government has introduced a Saskatchewan border security plan. Here are our plan below. So with the conversation of the 51st state, even before that, the threat of tariffs on Canada from the US, a 25% threat. Basically, when Trump announced that, he says, clean up your border or we're going to do this. So a lot of the provincial government have stepped up. Alberta is one of them. Ontario is one of them. Saskatchewan has talked about it. This is just one of the things that they're announcing. I can't remember what the name of that MLA is, but it might be, I might reach out to them to see if they would come on the show and just explain a little bit what they're doing, how they're approaching this. It's a long shot. They may not, but considering this show reaches probably more mainstream, more people in Saskatchewan than mainstream media combined, maybe they will start considering it, because we sometimes get upwards of like several thousands of views on videos, especially if I do the shorter video. So, but anyways, I'll play this video up here. I just have to switch screens.
National border, and we will continue to.
I'll do this one.
Today, our government is taking steps to further enhance the integrity of our border with the United States and to address criminal activity down and near the border by implementing a new Saskatchewan border security plan.
As of today, we are immediately redirecting 16 Provincial Protective Service officers within the Saskatchewan Highway Patrol and Conservation Service to patrol high-priority areas near the border.
These officers are highly trained. They're equipped and skilled to patrol and elevate the security down near our border.
Our Highway Patrol and Conservation officers have existing resources that include canine handler teams, a mobile command unit for conducting commercial vehicle inspections, and supporting other law enforcement operations, up to 16 patrol cars equipped with license plate readers and specialized equipment such as snowmobiles and ATVs that will support patrols, including remote area patrols.
We're also prepared to mobilize additional resources when and if needed to respond to any emerging incidents that might occur by building a surge capacity of up to 95 officers to support federal border agencies if significant illegal activity should occur at the border.
The Canadian Border Service Agency and the RCMP are directly responsible for maintaining the integrity and security of our international border, and we will continue to work with our federal counterparts to maximize our collective impact.
Our officers will support these federal agencies' efforts to protect our shared border crossings, but they will not assume any federal border enforcement responsibilities.
This plan will allow us to address the evolving concerns related to the border and conduct additional enforcement activities where needed and when needed.
federal government's full border security plan, along with the funding breakdown, while we continue working with our provincial partners and our state partners across the border to enhance border security efforts for everyone across this country as well as into the U.S.
I'm going to be critical here. Why don't they just speak from the heart? Why are they reading from a teleprompter? That's one of the things that I find Danielle Smith is better at. She speaks like from the information. She just knows all of this stuff from the top of her head. So, and she just speaks to it. Why are they reading from a teleprompter? I find here's the post. I just find it's like low quality. Sorry, I'm very critical because I don't think this is going to reach many people. I don't think it's authentic. But am I glad that they're doing this? Yes. But it would be much better if they come on the show. This guy, what's his name? I'm trying to remember. I don't even know. He didn't even tag him. He should have tagged him. Here are plan below with and tagged him. Amateurs. Gosh, this is who's running our government. Anyways. Now, I want to talk about something else that I think we should be thinking about because this is just, I don't know who he is. Counsel as Canadian Coast founder, co-host Not Reserving Judgment, classical liberal, proud, freedom is my nationality. I don't follow. Oh, yes, I do know him. I have met Josh. Why wasn't I following him before? He follows me. I've met him at a lot of events. They wrote a book about, sorry, I didn't recognize him at first. They wrote a book about the convoy. Not the convoy, the COVID narrative. And I've met both these. I might have met her too. I think it was in Red Deer. And I also met him in Ottawa at the Canada Strong and Free Network. And I'm like, I don't know if I know him. I do. Okay, he says we should have been nicer to Alberta. They've forked over. And now I'm even more likely to want to share this because I know he's a man of strong integrity. He's a lawyer too, but he doesn't say that in his profile. They forked over $240 billion in transfer payment over the past 11 years, which have funded social programs in low productivity provinces. In exchange, they've been treated like pariahs and told they must phase out their main industry. It's such a great point. So he's quote tweeting Danielle Smith going with Kevin O'Leary to meet Trump. I think that was last week. Was it last weekend or this past weekend? January 12th, a few days ago. And it's true. And I have a picture, not there. Let's see. Of the transfer payments. I just got to scroll down here. And it's a post that someone did. So, and I talked about this a bit yesterday, not yesterday, the day before on my show, but I didn't have the picture. So Canada has this thing called equalization payments. So all the resources that come from all the countries get kind of put into a pot and divvied up across all of Canada. So Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC, that pot, it gets put, all of their resources gets put into that pot and then shared across all of Canada. But it's not all of Canada that gets it. All of the West gets none of it. So it takes from the West and gives to the East. So Quebec gets 13.6 billion of that money. Ontario, 546. Newfoundland and Labrador, 113 million. New Brunswick, 3.1 billion. PEI, 666 million. Oh, I don't like that number. Nova Scotia, 3.5 billion. It's funny, there's like an island just on top of Quebec here. I think it's Ile de la Madeleine. Anyways, they had the 666 line to that in one of the advertisement. I'm like, somebody doesn't even know their geography. They don't even know where PEI is. That's embarrassing. But and then it's explained where it's coming from. Let's see if I can make this bigger. So this is the amount that Alberta puts in. 244 billion. So this was over it was the Fraser Institute that made this. This is how much over so many years. It doesn't say how many years. Does it say in the initial post? Let's go see. It's a long post. That's why I didn't read the whole thing. I'll read some of it. Alberta has been picking up the check for Canada's federalist experiment for decades. In the 15 years from 2007 to 2022, Alberta has contributed 245 billion to the federal coffers, as in the money. BC has contributed the next largest amount, 47 billion. Wow. So Alberta's 245 billion. And then after that, it's 40. Wow. That's blowing my mind. Since 2007. Imagine if this wasn't happening and Alberta was keeping all of that money. Alberta would have their roads paved of gold. I'm exaggerating. But seriously, you want to talk about problems with healthcare in Alberta? There would be a lot less of a problem with healthcare in Alberta. No wonder the separatism sentiment is so big in Alberta. I didn't realize it was this high. Sorry. You're seeing live. I'm shocked about this. Shocked. Instead of thanks and collaboration on expanding Canadian energy, the feds have actively stood in the way of critical energy infrastructure that have massively increased global market access and Alberta and Canada's wealth. Wow. They did this in the name of climate, the weirdly domestic, only performative version of climate and mission that Ottawa embraces. It doesn't look at global emissions that would create a case for our LNG. Instead, it features self-dealing green slush funds and failed EV spending that makes zero difference to the planet and landlock our cleaner fuels away from the nation that needs them most. So just, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm not reading right now. I'm just sharing my personal opinion. If people actually cared about climate change and carbon causing human caused climate change, all of that, if they actually really had that as their priority, not lining their own pockets and their friends, if their priority was actually that, you'd do the opposite of shutting down oil and gas in Canada. Because if Canada was to create more oil and gas, we'd be feeding it to the entire world. And instead of people buying from countries that don't process it as clean as we do, as efficiently as we do, with the carbon capture technology that we have, the world would be less polluted. If that was actually their main focus, they would say, let's create more Canadian oil and gas so that the rest of the world who doesn't do it as well don't produce as much. So that's not their priority. And he's pointing this out. During the same 15-year period, Alberta funded most of Canada. Quebec got 327 billion more from Canada than they contributed during the same period. I'm going to read the whole thing because there's so much good information in this tweet. How does Alberta economy lead Canada so decisively? In 2009, Conservatives won a landslide in Alberta, and we took some very hard and unpopular choices at the hardest point in our recession to run an economic recovery strategies. We had no option. We had to reverse the fiscal failure of the NDP years, out of control borrowing and spending. We had to work our way out of debt and crippling bureaucracy. We cut red tape and taxes so we could compete with the key U.S. states. We set up Invest Alberta Corp and quickly landed a major deals and grew jobs and are now 90% of all private sector hiring in all of Canada. What? So of all the new jobs being created in all of Canada in the private sector, not government job, but in the private sector, Alberta is 90% of all of them. That economic momentum created prosperity and attracted the youngest demographic and the smartest workforce in the country. But the feds fought us every step of the way. They actively attempted to block investment, like the Advanced Material Dow deal, where they tried to enforce a plastic ban. We sued them to overturn and won. They weaponized laws to block oil and gas infrastructure and pipeline and mining deals, all while simultaneously doubled our national debt, borrowing money to inflate their bureaucracy and debt funded hiring and program expansion that's totally unsustainable. I like everything this guy is saying. Now they've passed on a 1.5 trillion debt trap to our children and killing our public service by spending 15% of all tax revenues on interest. That's more than on federal health care transfers or the military. Money that is paying bondholders instead of going to Canadians. Oh, this continues. Almost done. Then we had to be insulted by the fiscal recklessness of Freeland, the former journalist who blew up our debt but called us cold and cruel and small for our hard choices, while her debt addiction and government obesity ran out of control. Now that the U.S. is playing hardball, the structural weakness the feds created is obvious. The economic and dollar decline, the poverty, loss of productivity, and the decline in our border security, military integrity, Arctic capabilities, all of it has Canada negotiating with our hands tied. Alberta is Canada's economic outlier, poised to transfer another $250 billion to the rest of Canada this coming decade. Since Melanie Joly has no idea, I suggest the feds let the Premier keep making the essential case for Canadian energy. It's a third of our export GDP, belongs solely to Alberta, and its primary thing. Okay, it also belongs to Saskatchewan, so don't leave Saskatchewan out. We have oil and gas too. Not as much, but we do have some, and is a primary thing the Americans care about besides border and military security. It's also the key to Alberta's ability to keep paying for the rest of Canada to function, in spite of the federal antagonism to it, and the Americans know that. So I'll go back to the photo. So Quebec, you can't see the whole thing. Let me move it over just a little bit. So this must have been since 2007. So BC, Ontario. I don't know why it's minus 19. We don't take any of the payments. Let's see if I can. No, there's no other. Maybe it's so small they were only counting it in millions, and we don't take millions, we take. Oh no, we do. I'm going to see if I can find that and clarify what this number means. Because yeah, if you go at the other photo, this is the photo, equalization payment. So maybe it's just how much they put into it. I don't know. But yeah, this is 244. Go back to the photo. Yeah, these numbers. Okay. Yeah, it is 2007 has contributed 245 billion. I'm going to clarify, and I'll bring it back on the show on another day. Who is David Knight? Do I follow him? Advisor to government, energy, and financial service firms, chairman of the Intelligence Square Debate Forum, chairman of Element Capital Advisor. I'm going to follow him. I don't know why I didn't before. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to see if he'll come on my show. I'm just going to write that down quickly. on my phone because I don't want to forget that when he'd be a really good guest to bring on. David Knight. Okay. Next subject. Oh, there's a video that Daniel Smith, I did play this video the other day. So I'll
So
the whole
I
thing
just
'cause
don't take
it's
that as a credible
it's
threat.
2
I'm sure
minutes
that the
and 37 seconds. But I love how quick and on her feet Daniel Smith is when she's answering questions. She does such a good job, and I think conservatives should learn a thing or two from them. More importantly, the conservatives in Saskatchewan. But here, she's
sure
asked a
that the
question.
U.S. admissible
It's towards the end. I played the whole thing
If
the other
she,
day.
if they were to proceed down that path,
Here's the question.
if they were to proceed down that path for some reason, what would be Alberta's response?
Well, they will have a national unity crisis on their hands at the same time as having a crisis with our U.S. trade partners. We just won't stand for that. And I don't think Ontarians and Quebec should stand for that as well. They shouldn't be standing by and listening while a federal minister talks about cutting off their energy supply. That's just not on. That makes no sense.
In this video,
Comes down through Michigan to
right
get
here.
to minister to look at a map of where line 5 goes. Line 5 comes down through Michigan to get to Sarnia. And then that feeds the bulk of the supply needed for Ontario and connects with line 9, which feeds the bulk of the product needed for Quebec. And so if you cut off that line, you are cutting off Ontario and Quebec. So I would
Boy, did she school them. So basically she's saying that this when they were talking about shutting off the oil and gas to the states, this is how incompetent the Liberal government is and Jolie is. That same line that feeds the state is also the line that feeds Ontario and Quebec. It goes through the US. So I didn't know this. I mean, I'm not in government. I'm not the one that's saying we should cut off oil and gas to the states. But Jolie is, and she's part of the government. The Liberal Party is. So, and that map, somebody posted that map here. He says, "Hey, Ottawa Liberals and NDP MPs, take a look at this map and let me know how you plan to run our economy when you shut down oil to the US from Alberta. Your ignorance of your own energy economy is why you are both on the road to electoral ruin, though not soon enough." And then it's that map. Let me move that over here. So the one, like, this was supposed to be Energy East. That was supposed to go to New Brunswick. So, but it's not there. There was supposed to be one that was throughout Canada and Canada only, Energy East. It was mostly shut down in Quebec. I think they had allowances and it was supposed to still happen, but Trudeau shut it down. But yeah, oil and gas is to Ontario through here is it goes through the states. How incompetent are we? And I just want to add to Energy East, for people who don't know, New Brunswick has a major refinery processing capacity called Irving. So we could technically get our oil and gas from Alberta to go through the port to the rest of the world. Like we could provide oil and gas and natural gas resources, all of our resources to the rest of the world if Energy East hadn't been canceled. I'm hoping when we get a new government, hopefully a conservative government, they will turn this back on and put pressure to have it pushed through. There's ways of doing that at the federal level. We just have an incompetent government who's trying to shut down all oil and gas, like Trudeau government want to shut down all of the oil and gas in the world. I have strong Wait, how do I do this? How do I do Rachel Gilmore? I have strong feelings about this. Anyways, interesting. I didn't know we didn't have any go through Canada. How much of a national security threat does that pose to Canada? How vulnerable does that make us? Like in reality, that's a huge problem. Wow. Oh, I want to next topic. I talked about this yesterday just briefly um with Kevin that I had a guest on. We were talking all about the California fires, and I had said how Elon Musk, they're pausing their deliveries in California over the next few days, the deliveries of the Cybertruck. He says we need to use those trucks as mobile base stations to provide power to Starlink internet terminals in areas of LA without connectivity. A new truck will be delivered end of week. So basically he's saying we're pausing it for a few days, which I thought was a really good move. Now, I want to bring attention to this. So I don't know who this person is. But he writes this again, this is a conspiracy. I can't fit the hat because I have a ponytail. But it's quite a coincidence. So he says, who knows? But this is a bit of a coincidence, isn't it? How incredibly lucky for the developers building California's new high-speed rail network. The wildfires almost perfectly match the proposed route clearing the land, making it essentially worthless. Look at that. So this is all the fire, all the burnt area. I'm just letting you guys look at this for a second. This is insane. So in order for them to put that through, they would have had, like, it's not a perfect match, but it's a pretty close match. Some people have said, oh, it's because they want to bring in 15-minute city. And maybe that's true. I don't know. But this is, yeah. Kim Ferris says, quite a coincidence, huh? It is quite a coincidence. Wow. Sorry, I'm like, I had looked at it just quickly, but I hadn't realized like how exact it is. Anyways, that whole speed, what do they call it? High-speed rail network, that whole thing has so much corruption attached to it. They've already spent $7 billion and they've done what? Here, let me see. I want to Google it because California. See what we can come up with. Okay, this is interesting. Gavin Newsom, he says California is going to get it right with this new high-speed rail. That was in 2010. The $33 billion high-speed rail from Los Angeles to San Francisco to be completed in 2020 is now a $128 billion train from Bakersfield to Merced with no expected date of completion. And the media is saying, why is Elon Musk trying to kill California's high-speed rail? This is their reporting. Wow. Interesting. And that goes to the failure of elected officials, how much they can destroy a country in such a short period of time. This is not even a country, this is a state. How much they can destroy a state in such a short period of time. Now, let's look at a leader who does a really good job at dealing with natural disaster. This is a video, actually, so I'm going to put it at the screen at the top here. It's a video about, I didn't watch the entire thing, but I watched a portion of it. I'm like, I like it. So we're going to watch it together, the full thing, for the first time. It was 1 minute long. So
2 years ago, Hurricane Ian demolished Southwest Florida.
Wait, I'm not ready for it. Here you go.
2 years ago, Hurricane Ian demolished Southwest Florida. Immediately after the hurricane, everybody on the news was saying to rebuild the Sanibel Causeway, which is about 4 miles, was going to take 3 years. That's what everybody was saying. DeSantis basically had it rebuilt in a month because he brought all the best contractors down. He took everybody to the bridge and basically said, what do we need to do? We gave him our recommendations and he started making it happen the next day. That's proper, competent governance. We're just so not used to that. We're used to what you fled in California, an ever-growing state that taxes endlessly and punishes people for success. And then it's like, how is it that I have nice, clean roads in Florida? How is it that we don't have homeless people? Why do things work with no income tax in Florida? And why does Cali tax the high hell out of you and have much worse services and much worse infrastructure and a whole series of other problems? So the government shouldn't do much. Everything should be dealt with at the state and local level. And then the federal government should have a couple things that they're supposed to do. So that would be border, make sure the states aren't warring with each other, interstate commerce, foreign policy. I would say the founders basically got it completely right.
It's true. It's true. I've always been a fan of Ron DeSantis since the beginning, since COVID. I loved how he was dealing with the COVID stuff. I love how he's dealt with the woke ideology and extremism coming into the school. I'm a huge fan with how he deals with natural disaster. He's the example of what a true leader is. And I know that he was getting attacked a lot when he was running against Trump by the MAGA, trying to demonize him, but I actually think he's a great leader. He gets it done, and he doesn't allow the media to manipulate the narrative either. Do I think he's perfect? No, but I think if he was, and I'm not saying I'm not even American. I wish we had Ron DeSantis in Canada. I wish we had types of leaders like Ron DeSantis in Canada. And, but if he was to run for imagine if he ran and I think a lot of people were cheering him on to do it in 2028. But I think, imagine what he could do, someone like that, with what he's done with Florida. Imagine what he could do for the US. Look, I still prefer JD Vance. Maybe. I don't know. You know what? I think I'd prefer Ron DeSantis, JD Vance being the vice president. Some people will disagree completely with me. But when you look at what he's faced, how he's overcome adversity in times that were tough, I think he's kind of like a perfect example of how to lead a state and how to lead a nation. But yeah, again, I saw that. I didn't even know about that. That's impressive what he did with Florida after Ian. Okay, the next subject. I'm just going to touch on this. I'm not going to go very deep. I will probably do a full episode to inform people on all the stuff that I've seen and investigated. And again, I will preface this that I am a former police officer trained to profile sex offenders, more specifically pedophiles. Okay? But all sex offenders as a whole. So I have a view of the porn industry. I have a view of the sex trade industry, very different than the general public, just because of the information that I've been exposed to when I was a police officer, when I had that training. So I'm prefacing that going into this subject. I'm not just going into it as someone who's completely uninformed on the sex trade, on porn industry, on the sexualization and abuse of children, and I'm not non-biased on this. I am extremely biased. I will admit that I am extremely biased because of the things that I've seen and what I've seen exposed in that industry, and what kind of people are involved in that industry, and what kind of people are led to become part of that industry, like female sex workers. A lot of them have faced sexual abuse from a very early age. Actually, it's one of the traits on how to determine someone may have been sexually abused as a child is they're more likely to go in that type of work. Not all of them, but most of them. So with that, I'm going to start talking about Andrew Tate. And there can be two things happening at once. Andrew Tate can be an absolutely disgusting human being that has committed atrocious things that are absolutely immoral. And he can also be someone who's been targeted for lawfare that may or may not be justified. The two things can be applicable at once. I'm not saying that's the case. I don't actually believe that there's no legitimacy to the charges that he's been facing. Some conservative commentators have approached this subject and almost made him out to be a victim that's being targeted. Therefore, he's completely innocent and we should be protecting him, blah, blah, blah. I'm not one of those. I have seen too much videos, too much stuff that he's personally said, bragged about, and done in the last few years since he started coming up. I didn't even know who he was, and I just started looking into it. I had so many red flags. So many red flags because of my training. I would never have him on my show except if I had an opportunity to interview him. I would go full on police mode with the whole mission to get a confession out of him. It would be like me sitting in an interview room with a sex offender and getting to a point of potentially having a confession, full-blown confession, so that I can lock him up in jail to protect vulnerable people. That's my personal opinion, based on my background, based on some of the stuff that I've seen him, not someone else say, his own words. And with that, he just posted this a few weeks ago. And I want to say this too, to warn conservative, if you're going to have him on your show, do it with the sole purpose of exposing and saying, this is not a role model. This is not someone our young men should be looking up to. But this is the conservatives are saying Andrew Tate's a reform man. He's a Muslim now. He's changed his way of thinking about all of it. He's not a pimp anymore. He's not taking advantage of women, vulnerable women, sexually abused women, women who are underage. He's not doing that anymore. He's a changed man. So we should be giving him a platform. This is something he tweeted just a few weeks ago, directly on his Twitter account. Fact, women are sex workers. Their primary job now is to find one customer, call the boyfriend to pay for their entire lives in return for, I don't even want to say it. Starts with a P. If they fail at this, they do OnlyFans or porn, the same game with more than one customer. If they're ugly, they work a job badly, in quotation, and are miserable. Why are any conservatives and Christian conservatives having this man on their show? Unless it's to expose how no one should be following him. Again, I'm going to do a big deep dive, but I don't even want to do that unless I can show, and I don't even know how to do it because almost all of the stuff is so atrocious that I don't think it'd be safe for like a lot. I have a lot of moms that watch my stuff, and I don't want kids to see some of that. It's anyways, Ben Shapiro said something. It's a video. He talks about it. Oh, it's too long. I won't show the video, the entire video, but he talks about um this. I'll just read the tweet. He says, anyone who wants to talk with Andrew Tate should talk with him. Obviously, it's a free country. The real problem is so many cheerleading and applauding a self-proclaimed professed pornographer who oppose the most basic standard of virtue. So, and I watched some of this. I didn't watch the entire thing because I don't have the patience to watch longer video unless I can skip through them. But he says, look, yeah, we have free speech. Problem is not that you're bringing him on the show. The problem is that when you do, you're cheerleading him and applauding him, almost making him into being a hero when he's the exact opposite of that. And that's not because of how the media has attacked him or legal. These are things that he has said himself. And when I think about the young generation, the boys, the men who feel like a lack of hope, they and that's a problem in itself that we should be identifying and working to fix it. But the young generation, men more importantly, feel a lack of hope in their future, whether it's finding a woman that matches their values, finding a woman that is not sexually provocative or sexually like doing OnlyFans account is so low. The percentage of young women participating in that is so high right now. Finding a job where they can have financial stability, their hope in their future of maybe owning a house one day and having a big family. That's almost, when you look at the young generation, they're so in a hopeless, desperate state. And that's a reality. It's not just an opinion. When you look at the young generation, these are some of the things that they're feeling. And then you have someone like Andrew Tate coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to teach you how to make a lot of money and become rich and live this fancy lifestyle that I live. And you're not going to be taking advantage of women. I'm going to teach you how to find women who's going to worship you, be submissive to you. This is what he's teaching. And these young men with no signs of hope for their future are looking to someone to give them hope. And the sad state that we are in, there's not a lot of men out there who are spreading a message of hope. There are some, but not a lot. And most men who have all these values, all of these good messages, are not sharing online their wealth because they don't think that's what's high value. They don't think being rich, as in financially rich, is the answer to all the problems. They think true richness is having a family that loves you, children who love you, and who you can grow and build a relationship with. That's true richness in these men's eyes. But when you have young generation who they live in a world where everything around them says richness is things, richness is money, richness is never having to worry about a meal, richness is all those things, they're going to look to someone who is promoting all of that. Even though most of the Christian men who are truly rich when it comes to their family, most of them will have financial stability and richness. They just don't brag about it because that's not in their worldview. That's not the most important thing. So how do you get young generation to see that? I don't know, but I know one thing. It's not going to happen when you have conservative people who claim to value all of these things, prop up disgusting men like Andrew Tate. That's not going to happen. And I'm so disappointed in that happening on the right. And I'm hoping there's going to be a shift in that. There's going to be a shift that's, let's actually show our young generation who real role models are. Not this. I'm not even going to go into how I really feel about him. Anyways, I will try to do a more full-on episode in the future. I'm also, one of the subjects I want to tackle as well is the hatred that's happening towards Jews and Jewish community. In the last few weeks, I've seen it get completely out of control, and a lot of people are fooled about the information that some of these accounts are spreading. Again, I've seen it even in our own circles in Saskatchewan. I have a friend who's gone down that line, just completely went off the handle with anti-Jew and Jewish hatred. But one of the things that I keep seeing, and I'd like to do a whole episode just on the things that people say, and then say, okay, what's the actual fact about it? And one of the ones that I always see is that their reference the Talmud, which is the Jewish religious text that is part of their faith. It's not like our Bible. It's not that. Most Jewish people will have never read it or that they might read some parts of it, but a lot of the stuff that is pushing, they're pro pedophilia and this is why, like these are actual lies. And this guy talks about the context behind it. So I'm going to play this video, but again, I want to do a deep dive on this as well and bring someone on the show. I want to do the debate, but I also want to bring someone on the show. But this was a video that I actually saved in my bookmark as one whenever I see that text and he talks about it. So I'll play the video here. And I don't know who this gentleman is, but he explains it really good.
Attacking it right now. If you're someone who
I
gets
didn't even know what the Talmud was until I kind of saw this video. I had heard it being quoted, but I didn't know fully what it was. Here.
What is the Talmud? Why is everybody across the internet attacking it right now? If you're someone who gets your information from places like Twitter and 4chan, you probably think it's a book of demon worship, racism, and pedophilia. I'm going to try to dissect some of these accusations, but Instagram Reels have a time frame on how long they can be, so I'm going to do it as quickly as possible, basically just giving you the cliff notes. First off, we have to talk about who's attacking it. I know attacking a person making a claim instead of the claim itself is a logical fallacy, but something needs to be pointed out here. The Talmud has 2 million words in it. It takes the most devout Jews who study every single day 7.5 years to complete it. They study 1 page a day because it's so complex, and when they're done with this whole thing, they still have questions about it. That being said, if you are one of the millions of people who saw Dan Bilzerian's post about it, the renowned theological scholar, I hope you didn't take it too seriously. So, the Talmud is a huge piece of ancient literature from around the 3rd century that contains 2 halves, the Mishnah and the Gemara. Mishnah is Judaism's oral tradition, which we believe was given to Moses on Mount Sinai and passed down generation to generation orally until after the destruction of the Second Temple, when the rabbis realized it needed to be written down so it wouldn't get lost. Now, if you're confused, like, I didn't know there was an oral tradition given on Mount Sinai, let me give you guys an example. In Deuteronomy 12:21, God commands the Jewish people to only eat meat that have been slaughtered the way that he showed them. That being said, I challenge anybody to open the Torah and try to find a verse that talks about how to slaughter an animal in the kosher way. You cannot find it. The only reason we know how to is because of the oral tradition. Now, the other half of the Talmud, the Gemara, is a recollection of debates and stories by the rabbis over the years. This is something that the anti-Semites do not understand. You see, what they do is they post like 1 or 2 sentences from this part of the Talmud, and they say, you see that? This is Jewish law. Every single Jew believes in this. So here's my question to these people. A debate requires there to be 2 conflicting opinions. Let's say Rabbi 1 says that Jews can't eat pork and Rabbi 2 says that Jews cannot eat pork. Are you telling me that a Jew can and cannot eat pork? That violates the law of non-contradiction. It is impossible. The point I'm trying to make here by saying this is that not every word of the Talmud is Jewish law. Jewish law is called halakha. Much of it is derived from the Talmud. However, not every word of the Talmud is Jewish law. Now, let's get into some of the specific lines that the anti-Semites like to cite. They post a few sentences that they believe support their opinion that Judaism is a satanic religion that's pro-pedophilia, pro-racism, pro-everything else. The issue is, almost every single line is either mistranslated, completely out of context, or simply does not exist. Combine that with the fact that not every single word in the Talmud is law, they don't really have a case here. To demonstrate this in a timely manner, I'm going to bring up one of the lines that is cited the most by these anti-Semites, Ketubot 11b. This tractate reads, an adult man who engaged in intercourse with a minor girl less than 3 years old has done nothing, as intercourse with a girl less than 3 years old is tantamount to poking a finger into the eye. The people who post this are like, you see, Judaism supports pedophilia. It says it's okay to have sex with a 3-year-old girl. And you know what? If I read just these 2 sentences, I might believe the same thing because it's kind of what it sounds like, right? To understand the actual meaning of this, we should first look at the title of the tractate. Ketubot is the plural of the Hebrew Hebrew word ketubah, which is a marriage contract in Judaism referenced throughout the Torah. In modern society, we don't really talk about this too much, but when it comes to traditional Jewish law, there's something very important to marriage: virginity. Let's say, God forbid, a 3-year-old girl or someone younger was raped. Would it be fair if when she grew up, she was not allowed to have a marriage contract because that happened to her? Absolutely not. That's what this chapter is about. The chapter is the opposite of what the anti-Semites claim it is. It's not pro-abuse of a child. It is defending the child when they're adult from the tragedy that befell them. This is one of many examples of contextless lines that are thrown out all over Twitter to try and make the Jewish people look bad. I can't cover a lot of them because, again, I'm on a time limit here, but you get the point. Now, listen, I won't front. I'm not a Talmudic scholar. I've read a little bit of it here and a little bit of it there. So maybe some of these lines do exist. But as I mentioned to you earlier, not every line of the Talmud is Jewish law. If you are a Christian person or a Muslim person, and I put together a book of every single opinion of every single Christian leader or every single Muslim leader from like hundreds of years, would you tell me you would agree with every single one of them if you're a part of either of those faiths? You know, speaking of Muslims, there's one other thing that I want to close with here. It's been unfortunate to see that many of the people floating around these accusations of the Talmud are Muslims. What would you do if I said that in the Quran, Allah says that part of the Talmud was divine revelation from him himself? In Surah Al-Ma'idah 532, it says the following: "We, Allah, decreed upon the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul, unless for the soul or for corruption done in the land, it is if he has slain mankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is if he has saved mankind entirely." He says he revealed that line to the Jewish people, but I don't recall a line of that in the Hebrew Bible. So where could it have come from? Oh, that's right, Sanhedrin 37a, which says, "Whoever destroys a soul, it is considered as if he destroyed an entire world. And whoever saves a life, it is considered as if he saved an entire world." The more you know. The moral of the story here is that I could probably take any single book that I want to. Right now I'm reading Marcus Aurelius's works. I could probably find one line in here that makes it seem like Marcus Aurelius is okay with pedophilia or murder or what be it, if I take it out of context. That being said, if you're going to criticize something, if you want to be intellectually honest, you should probably study it first instead of getting 1 or 2 lines off the internet.
See, interesting. I've seen that line being thrown around. I've seen like memes of it, and then this gentleman explains it. And I didn't know that about the Talmud. So basically, it's everything the people in that faith have said over hundreds of years being documented in there. Interesting. So, yeah, I'd like to do a more deeper dive on some of the narratives we're seeing online, and some of the hatred that's being allowed, the people who are like denying the Holocaust. It's funny, all of the people who are kind of spreading this narrative are also people who deny the Holocaust happened. So anyways, I'd like to do a deep dive into it and show what I find, and try to do an accurate depiction as to what it actually means. So a comment here says, yeah, so he said, Hadi B says, very simply said, Talmud is an intensely detailed commentary on the Hebrew scripture, the Torah, prophets, and writings that include commentary on the oral passed down scriptures. So it's not considered like every word in there is, like he said, Jewish law. So, but it's being, some people will grab onto it and twist it. You see that happen as well with the Christian faith and stuff like that. It's really important to get the context behind what is being said. So, and like he said, if there was a document of everything like every imam has said, or everything every Christian has said, and that was to become the document. We all know Christians say things that aren't in line with God, and aren't in line with the faith or the law of even Christianity. And I say the law, but you know what I mean. But yeah, so I will end this episode here. I'm going to continue doing short clips of the episodes to, I'm just trying to find the best way to go about doing it to save time, because it's very time consuming. Even the ones that I posted last night and today. Norman said, yeah, at some point I'll get around to the Talmud, but right now my focus is on finishing the Old Testament and then reading the evil Quran start to finish. That's Norman. Norman said that comment. And it's funny, like the people who go and read the Talmud or parts of the Talmud, I asked them first, have you read the entire Bible of the faith that you profess to claim to have? I don't know a lot of people who have. There's a lot of people. I have not yet read the Bible in full. I'm doing that right now. I am doing a Bible study to go through, but I don't think I'll get it done in the next year. Some people do it throughout the year, but I want to mull over and really digest what I'm reading. So I'm not rushing through it, but I've read probably, I would say like 25% of it throughout in the last 8 years. But that's such a good point, Norman. Let's first focus on our own faith and self-reflect. Are we following our own faith first? And but yeah, I would be interested in seeing what's actually in the Quran. Hadi says exactly Hebrew plus Greek and Aramaic first. Yeah, I don't know how to read all those language, but I do know someone who does read Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic, and he's a pastor that I met at America Fest that I've reached out to see if he would come on my show, and we'll see if he will in the future. Yeah, I've read the New Testament. That I have. I've read the whole New Testament. It's the Old Testament. I haven't read much of it. Some of it. I would say Genesis. I've read that. I've read Exodus. I've read a lot of it, but it's funny. Even on Sunday at church, not Sunday, on Wednesday, my husband and I went on a Wednesday, and the lady that was reading from a book of the Bible. I'm like, I've never heard of that book. I'm gonna just go back and see which one it was from. My husband was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, Habakkuk." She was reading from Habakkuk and Zephaniah. I'm like, "What?" I didn't even know those were books in the Bible. Anyways, that I'm just being openly honest with you guys. So, but I really liked her message, and it talked about distraction and stuff, and I'm like, "Yeah, I am completely guilty of being on my phone way too much, not spending enough time with God." And it was something I felt really convicted in the last week. So, and that's what this made me decide to actually get into a plan to start reading the Word of God and reading my Bible. So I was like, I didn't even know those were books in there. And I've been a Christian for 8 years. So my husband's like, don't feel bad. They're not like super popular one. It's very rare. They are quoted in messages and in sermons. So, but yeah. Anyways, I will let you guys go. I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is, what are we today? Are we Tuesday? No, we're Wednesday. I'm trying to remember if I have another guest this week. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to go back and look. A lot of organizing, running a daily show, but a lot of work in organization. We'll see if I might have one on Friday. I have to reach out to all the ones that I've reached out already just to see if it's a yay or nay and when they potentially said they could come. But I will let you guys go for now. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully right at 12. And I don't know yet what I'm covering tomorrow, but we'll see. Anyways, have a good day, guys.